hard time following up to Professor Eric. I feel like I went to college. Hi, everyone. I'm Shawna. Welcome to a day of my life. No, I'm just kidding. I start all my talks with this photo. It's a photo of me. I was 8 years old. I was in an art class I took every Sunday. And my English tutor, I'm from China. I moved here when I was 8. She named me Shawna because she thought it sounded similar to my Chinese name, which is Xiayun. That means little summer. That's where the X comes from. So sometimes I wonder, like, why do I just let some random white lady name me? But you know, here I am. That is my deviant art name since middle school. And I just kind of stuck with it. You know, longevity really counts here. You might, if you live in Brooklyn, you might have seen some of my work, such as this mural outside of House of Yes in Bushwick. Yes, thank you. I also love talking about my birth and labor. If you want to hear my placenta story, please feel free to come. I'll have a whole talk about it, you know? Or my sculpture about accepting a lot of my cultural mannerisms. Or maybe you've seen that some big company ripped it off and put on Kids Awards show. That's another topic. But I do believe my deep inspiration comes from process of mothering myself and now my 2 kids. And the things I'm introduced to in that process, whether that's therapy, because we all have to, I don't know, I love therapy, so I'm gonna be a champion for it. Or like a good open-minded toys, like a children's toy. This is Bruno Minari's Plus and Minus that my daughter's playing with. It's just a bunch of transparencies with different layers of interesting images, and she puts it together and makes a story. And I love watching these 2 kids, they're 2 and 4, you know, to absorb the world with such curiosity. And I believe, for me, my choice of color palette comes from that champion that I have within myself for all the childlike wonder in all of us. I think we all have that childlike curiosity, and I just want to bring that out. And my potion to find that is enjoyment in little things and not too much pressure. And that's why I start all of my work on my 14-inch laptop so I can watch a trashy reality TV show at the same time, because there's no pressure, you know? And honestly, that's a screen. I start digitally for everything. And it goes into a mural or sculptural work or AI stuff, you know. Actually, Eric Hu has been instrumental in helping me get into AI, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, I love starting everything on this little thing. And I don't feel like I'm confined to any mediums, because translating work from 2D to 3D to 4D is just such a natural process. And we live in a world where it's very accessible. Like, you can go on TikTok and find out how to fabricate anything. It's just how it goes now, and I love that. So I'm here to talk about this project and how I translated something from 2D to, you know, a giant scale, and how that came to be. So in 2020, height of COVID, I was asked by the MTA to pitch for this installation at a train station in Elmont in Long Island, totally different places. It's a train station, and after doing some research, I realized that it started as a farmland over 100 years ago, occupied by various farmers of various religions, and now it's a big suburb, primarily Haitian population, and apparently like the biggest zip code of families that speak Urdu. So it's very diverse, very interesting. And the proposal itself called for 10 glass windows in the metal gate. And for me, as somebody who likes to look for themes, I did a lot of research to find a theme that connected the transition of all the communities throughout its time. And one place that really stood out to me was the Belmont track that the station will be next to, and they're building a new arena. And it's the place where everybody gathered to watch horse races and air races. And honestly, it's a very iconic, you know, image. And I saw it as the one unchanging staple in a very changing community. So as someone who's drawn to symbols, I utilized a track shape as like the grounding motif and created a series of form to focus on the expansion and transformation. And this is what I pitched to the team of like 30 people who has all the say in the world about what goes in the MTA. And also 2020, this is the height of COVID. So I was a new mother of a 2-year-old and I was pregnant at the same time, which is like insane. So themes of transformation felt really natural to me. And I realized looking back, because I don't look back as much, but my artwork at that time had a lot of distortive quality to it. So I wanted to bring that like vibe of metamorphosis into this work as well. And in my mind, so you first see the gates that looked very graphically bold and very minimal, and you walk up the stairs and you walk through a hallway of color. And I like the idea of the color glasses being far away, so you have to actually be inside of the experience to feel the colors. And I did this proposal in, I think, 2 weeks, and it was like a full brief, and I actually won it. I didn't expect that at all. And that's basically how I got it. And honestly, MTA has open calls for everybody, so you too can also pitch. I just want to make that clear. I didn't know this until I did this project. I was very streamlined in creating the gate of the MTA station because I think I really resonated with the theme of expansion itself, and also it felt like design, that's where I started. And I felt like I was very drawn to the track lines and expanded upon it. I think the simplicity of it really worked well with something that's very vibrant, which is my obviously signature look and feel. And for the windows itself, I added figures to hone in the human connection. And this whole process, I had a hard time like writing this because this process took two years. And as someone that's like worked on a project for longer than a month, you know how it goes. And I'm a Gemini, so it's like, this stuff is like... Anyway, I iterated this until the very last second, until it's like, I have to send this to give to the people to make sure it's delivered. And as someone that works with MTA for the first time, I didn't know, but I was in charge of sourcing, interviewing, and finding all the fabricators. So originally I wanted to do stained glass, but because of the complexity of the designs itself, I found somebody named Tom Patty in Massachusetts that created laminate glass that can withstand with conditions throughout time. And this entire process through COVID was a lot of shipping back and forth, samples here and there, work on the opacity lines here and there, a lot of post office visits, but I secretly enjoyed it because otherwise I would be driving like 8 hours to Massachusetts every single time I look at a sample. I'm very lazy. Just so you guys know. But thank God for modern technology and postal service. Thank you. The challenge, honestly, was working on such a small screen. As you can see, I go kind of crazy in my files. For me, I like having a boundary and then just go chaotic. So going from small to very large scales, there was a lot of discrepancies. So a lot of gaps that were found in between colors that I had to go back and spend 20 hours to fix. For the gate itself, there were a lot of issues with how much the gaps were because they were afraid that people were going to stick their heads in between the metal bars. I don't know, people are crazy. Just how it goes. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting design challenges that happened throughout these last 2 years. And I think 2/3 of the way in, there were just so many emails and Zoom calls. I was pretty over it, not gonna lie. And then it was until I visited the train station. I didn't see anything about what's happening, and I finally visited the grand finale, and nobody was there. And it was the most beautiful moment. I remember going there at sunset, empty station, a train just coming back and forth. It felt like a very Studio Ghibli moment. And then walking up to the glass hallway itself, I was so excited. My partner can attest to this. Everything I planned happened. The layering effects I was hoping for, the vibrancy of the colors, the reflection of the sun, everything just became this magic wonderland. And I guess when I think back about it, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I made this. I guess when you're on the screen, you just don't see the depth of the work that you can create. And sometimes you just have to take it off to experience it in real time. And I was also surprised by something so simple like these gates to have such a big effect as well. The shadows that distorted the space to the metal that reflected the sunlight, sunset, or the sunlight in general. And yeah, it was a very blessed moment for me, and I haven't visited since, but then I took my mom, who interpreted my artwork to her performative dances and made me do it. It was great. She was like, you gotta do this like this, and point your leg out like that. I'm like, okay, thanks, Mom. And also my friend who stopped by and took these very Tron-like videos, which I thought was really interesting, through the glass itself. And I think just evoking that play and that childlike wonder is something that just keeps on coming up in my work. So what have I been up to since? The project came out late 2022. And honestly, after a high of a big project, usually in the past, I would just find the next big thing, but I really paused. Honestly, I really wanted to talk about not working, but here I am talking about working, but pausing, because that's really important to me. After that project itself, it took so much out of me, along with work and having 2 kids under 2. Like, I realized after all these projects that this stuff is my life force, and I'm sure it is to a lot of you guys as well. And when you use it all the time for pleasure and for work, it just feels like a lot, you know? And I need to sustain, like, feeling rejuvenated for the rest of my life, which is a lot of pressure because I'm not a machine. And, you know, ultimately, you know, my purpose in the work that I want to create is to communicate and connect on deep feelings, and that involves, first and foremost, being gentle on myself. So, yes, if there's a conference on resting, I'd be the best host or speaker for it. I think that's gonna be the next thing, just so you know. And another thing I like to do is like just make things with no pressure at all. So for example, like kids' birthday parties, I'll just buy a bunch of pipe cleaners and make my adult friends make things, you know, that's really fun. Or make things for glass, that's something I've been playing with on the side. It's totally different and no pressure. And I think this is how I keep myself grounded and not take anything for granted. But when it comes to going back to my work, I also am breathing new life into the archives. I think, you know, we live in a society where we have to make new things all the time, like Instagram posts, TikTok, I don't know. Like, it just feels like you're just constantly having to produce. And there's nothing wrong with going back to the stuff that you've made and breathing new life into it. So for example, this video was part of a generative art project or art installation I was a part of. And it became a pattern for a sustainable children's brand. That's in London, actually, called Petite Pli. So yeah, I think finding these things, like working with the economy, life in general, is just such an important thing for me. I mean, this year I've definitely been feeling it. I'm so glad Eric brushed upon this. It's like, I'm feeling it from the regression. But you know what? It's been one of my favorite years, personally, because I've been spending a lot of time with myself, a lot of time with my family and my friends, and sometimes that's all I want to do. I do feel like because of a lot of time that I'm spending with myself, I feel a big shift into, like, I feel like I'm on the precipice of something totally new, and that's more work, that involves more play. You know, I just want to take this energy into the next things that I'm doing. And this is the first time I don't feel as jaded as I was. If you asked me to talk 3 years ago, it was not good. And honestly, my dream is to make a playground, you know, work with more glass, work with reflective materials that give a lot of light. Recently, my friend said that my 2-year-old has a sparkly laugh, and I just want to have that within myself. Just like, I want to be sparkly. Like, I just want to be sparkly. And I know all of us are capable for more sparkle. And so, yeah, thank you so much. It's nice for this opportunity to share and reflect on one of my favorite projects. And feel free to find me online. We can talk about whatever subjects you want to talk about.